Breath of the Wild's take on Zelda is one of the most distinct in the series. She's not into magic or tradition. She likes to explore, to invent, to learn new things. Yet, living in the shadow of her father and her lineage, she cannot. Instead, she's forced to put aside her passions and desperately try to unlock a power that she has no real connection toward, one she almost even resents. Only after the death of her father and the champions is she able to release the power that was inside of her all along. Not to fulfill an obligation she was born into, but to protect someone she cares deeply about. Yet by then, it's too late, and she's already paid the price. Her friends and family are gone, same with her entire kingdom, and she must stay in the castle keeping Ganon at bay for the next 100 years. These memories experienced in Breath of the Wild have the foundation to create one of the most interesting stories in the Zelda series. But that's all it was, a foundation. We saw glimpses at the story, but by the nature of the framing device, it wasn't complete. Now, with Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity, we have a variation of the story that isn't just limited to memory. While it might not be the exact prequel that many were hoping for, the story we did get was able to flesh out Zelda into even more of a great character, in what may be her very first true starring role. Hi, I'm Jenny G, and today I'm going to take a deep dive into the story of Age of Calamity. Just to refresh, Age of Calamity is decidedly not a prequel to Breath of the Wild. The first half of the game plays out about how you'd expect based off what we already knew, just with the addition of a little time-traveling guardian. But midway through, right when it seems like the heroes will fail as predestined, the little guardian summons the descendants of the champions from the future to save the day. Unlike the tragic origin story told in Breath of the Wild, there's a happy ending where Calamity Ganon is defeated and King Rhoam and the champions survive. On paper, this sounds kind of like a lame cop-out, yet against all odds, this actually worked out in the game's favor. While we didn't get the depressing Crisis Core or Torna-esque prequel that we may have wanted, we did still get a very compelling narrative, and one of the first games ever where Zelda herself is undeniably the main protagonist. Giant world-ending calamity aside, one of the driving conflicts of the narrative in both games is the rift between Zelda and her father, King Rhoam. The prophecy states that Zelda needs to unlock her family's stealing power to defeat Calamity Ganon, but as said before, she's a researcher, not a mage. After years and years of not being able to access her lineage's power, she tries to search the world around her for a new solution instead. This goes against the wishes of her father, who believes Zelda should drop the research and exclusively commit to unlocking her power. This divide obviously hurts their relationship, and like anywhere in conflict, both perspectives are understandable. Zelda can't force herself to be someone that she isn't, yet she has to because of her father's demands. Rhoam just wants to protect his kingdom from an apocalyptic event. He doesn't want to make his daughter suffer, but he believes it's the only reliable option for preventing Armageddon. It's a believable and tragic conflict that permeates throughout the entire game. One of the reasons Zelda cannot unlock her power is because she has to masquerade her identity. Rhoam continually reprimands her for showing interest in anything beyond her princess duties. He believes it to be a mere distraction, to the point where Zelda can only really speak about her interests with Link, Impa, or the other champions. The support of these friends is all she really has. Even then, when Link pulls the Master Sword from its pedestal, revealing himself to be the Knight who seals the darkness, Zelda is initially jealous. She resents him for unlocking his power so easily. And really, all it took for Link to unlock his powers is the drive to protect someone he cares about. Link doesn't have to live a lie in the same way Zelda does. As Urbosa says, he's the same boy he was before pulling the Master Sword. He's stoic, yes, but when Link displays emotion, it's always genuine. Zelda doesn't have that same privilege, so she struggles to see things the same way he does. I don't think it's a coincidence that in both timelines, the point where Zelda finally does unlock her power is after her father has seemingly died. Both times she unlocks it to protect Link, in the same way Link unlocks his power to protect Zelda. While she's obviously horrified that she lost her father, the expectations of her lineage are now gone, and this time she's able to break free of her facade to save someone that she loves. Yet in the original timeline, it's too late. She was only able to save Link. Her father and the other champions are already gone, and this is essentially the end of the story. It creates an emotionally investing reason for why the heroes failed, why Link has to be asleep for 100 years, and why Zelda was trapped in Hyrule Castle. Yet, as a standalone story for a separate game, I don't think it would have been as satisfying. The arc of the main character would essentially be cut a bit short in order to set up another game. There's no personal closure in the conflict between her and her father, there's no major payoff to her passion for research and invention, and banding together the champions doesn't amount to much. Again, I'm not saying the narrative presented in Breath of the Wild is bad, it's quite interesting. I just don't think it would have been as satisfying in the context of its own game. This is where the changes in Age of Calamity really make it stand on its own. Specifically, the addition of Terrako with Little Guardian causes a ripple effect that changes the narrative of Age of Calamity in major ways, expanding upon the core emotional beats presented in Breath of the Wild. Terrako is a device that Zelda built when she was a child, a functioning guardian created from recovered ancient tech. Yet, after the passing of Zelda's mother, Rome forcibly hid the invention away so that Zelda would have no distractions from her goal. A memory so traumatic that Zelda had completely repressed it. In a way, I view Terrako as the representation of Zelda's purest, youngest self, the very self that she had to hide because of her father. The little guy is curious, friendly, and playful, similar to Zelda when she lets her facade down. And Terrako, the representation of Zelda's empathy and inventiveness, is the very reason that the heroes prevail in this timeline. He proves that Zelda wasn't wrong to break apart from the Multifer lineage. The split timeline created by Terrako's time travel only exists because of Zelda building him in the first place. She still unlocks her birthright's power to save Link, but her own individual traits end up mattering just as much, which is an extremely powerful message that continues the theme set up in Breath of the Wild. King Rome survives in this timeline for very similar reasons. Earlier on, Rome confiscates an ancient artifact that Zelda was studying, and this very artifact ends up being a shield that saves him from an onslaught of guardians. This, along with Zelda finally unlocking her power in his absence, gives Rome the epiphany that forcing his daughter to hide her true self is the very reason that she struggled. Zelda and Rome's reunion is very touching. Rome finally admits that he was in the wrong, and Zelda is able to understand and forgive him. He even steps down from his leadership position, atoning for his mistakes by now trusting his daughter's judgment to protect the kingdom. Zelda, having moved past her self-doubt and self-denial, is able to lead the charge that ends up defeating the Calamity. In this charge, however, Terrako sacrifices itself to weaken Ganon. This representation of Zelda's young, pure self is quite literally destroyed. But with Zelda's new sense of self, she doesn't let this destroy her. Instead, she uses it as a drive to finish Ganon off. And in the aftermath, she's able to rebuild Terrako with the help of Link, Impa, Rome, the champions, and all of Hyrule, almost in the same way that she was able to rebuild her own sense of self. It's not something that can be done alone. She wouldn't have been able to rebuild Terrako without the help of all of Hyrule, and she wouldn't have been able to rebuild her sense of self without the support of her friends. While Breath of the Wild emphasizes feelings of isolation after a great failure, Age of Calamity emphasizes the importance of banding together, both to stop an apocalyptic force and to find oneself. Age of Calamity offers such a good take on the story with such a fitting conclusion that it's hard for me to be upset that it wasn't the depressing prequel that it was marketed as. We still get to experience the highlights of the Calamity after all. We gather the champions, battle at Fort Atenno, and see what the world was like 100 years ago. Yet on top of that, we also get a complete narrative where Zelda grows from a repressed, unsure princess to a self-actualized leader, all with the help of this game's expansive cast. I don't think this alternate timeline cheapens Breath of the Wild. I think it enhances it. Both of the games tell interesting stories with the world, just with different outcomes, that both lead to different narrative directions that have merit. Experiencing Age of Calamity was able to make me better appreciate Breath of the Wild. Seeing the characters at their best makes it more effective to see them at their worst. As an audience, we already saw Zelda and the champions fail at their task, and now we can grow alongside the characters, learn from our mistakes, and succeed. And I think that message is just as satisfying and powerful in its own right. Also, you can play as the perfect husbando Prince Sidon, and I wouldn't trade that for the world. Thank you all so much for watching, I really appreciate it. If you liked what you saw, you feel free to like, subscribe, and comment with your own thoughts about Age of Calamity. Did you like it, dislike it? I'm really curious if my video was able to sway anyone either way. And if you want to see more of my content, I'm going to do more video essay stuff like this, as well as discussion stuff, so stay tuned, and see you all later.